Back in August of 1996, a home invasion went down in a neighborhood located in South Kentucky. Kentucky isn't very well known for its booming Asian population. Back in 1996, the state of Kentucky's population was 3.8 million, with only around 25,000 being Asian. Despite the low Asian population, the Asian boys have managed to establish roots in states like Kentucky, Kansas, Connecticut, North Carolina, New York, Minnesota, North Virginia, Utah, Georgia, Texas, and many other states. Needless to say, the Asian boys are well established outside of California. But today's video is not about all the cliques and different subsets. Let's take things back to Kentucky. Back in the 90s, home invasion was a popular lick, and this play was spreading like wildfire. Gang members would often travel to different cities or even states to ransack unsuspecting families. If you guys haven't seen my video I did on a gang member named Chaka from Tiny Rascals, I highly suggest you guys go check that video out after you guys finish up with this one, of course. On the off chance some of you guys have already seen that video, you will start to see some of the eerie similarities between these two stories. But anyway, back in August of 1996, a Laotian family of 3 fell victim to a deadly home invasion that quickly escalated into an execution-style murder. The victims were a mother and father alongside their 12-year-old daughter. 5 members from the Asian boys entered their house and herded the family into their bathroom. The shot caller of the group told one of the little homies to take care of the hostages. SOPHAL PHON, who was at the time 16 years old, ended up being the trigger man and took care of the job. The 2 parents died, and the little girl also suffered from a gunshot wound to the head, but survived. Can you imagine having to lay down next to your dead parents with a gunshot wound in your head? Jesus, I hope this girl has a little bit of a normal life after this. PHON had much more than just a rough upbringing. Him and his family were escaped refugees of the Khmer Rouge. During their time as refugees in a camp in Thailand, PHON lost 3 of his brothers due to starvation and overall inhumane conditions inside these refugee camps. The people who escaped the Khmer Rouge witnessed and had to go through unspeakable horrors, and this has a lot to do with the development of a young child. People went through hell in these refugee camps, and mind you, this was after escaping the infamous killing fields of Cambodia. SOPHAL PHON was one of these kids, and he ended up joining the gang after touching down in the United States as a refugee, and this is very common amongst the youth of a lot of these refugee families. PHON was arrested and brought before a jury at the age of 17 years old. Kentucky, being a commonwealth, was seeking the death penalty, but after presenting the nature of PHON's childhood and upbringing, his defense presented mitigating evidence. This ultimately got PHON life without parole, also known as the infamous LWOP, instead of the death penalty. PHON, being only 16 years old at the time when he took that family's life, might sound shocking to a lot of you, but this is the harsh reality for a lot of these children that escaped the Khmer Rouge. Since PHON was a juvenile when he committed the crime, the Supreme Court has recently granted PHON the possibility of parole in the year of 2032. PHON, who is now 38 years old, has a chance to get out in 10 years, but it's not guaranteed. These things take time. But what do you guys think about this decision? Do you think people like PHON should be locked up for the rest of their life? Some of you guys might think, nah, who cares if he was a juvenile at the time? Keep that animal locked in the cage. And some of you guys might think, nah, everybody deserves a second chance. After hearing about his childhood, it's hard not to bring up Chaka. Chaka's case is a bit different because he was much older during the time he committed his crime. He was 24 and PHON was only 16. But like PHON, Chaka escaped the Khmer Rouge, had to go through unspeakable horrors in the refugee camps, witnessed his brothers also die from starvation, and overall their upbringing was pretty similar. What I'm trying to say is, if people like PHON can get a second chance at life after escaping the death penalty, are people like Chaka deemed unworthy? Chaka has been sitting on death row for 23 years now. PHON and Chaka both had little to no guidance growing up here in the United States after escaping war. Chaka just happened to get caught up at 24 and PHON just happened to get caught up at 16. But I have to mention, Chaka was responsible for the death of multiple families and had much more bodies than PHON. But what is is the threshold of no return? Oh, like one family murder is cool, but definitely not two families? Like, what is the actual threshold? Should both parties be allowed a second chance at life, or only PHON because he happened to be 16 during the time of his crimes? Let's talk about it. Me personally, I feel like people deserve a second chance if they didn't have one to begin with. What do I mean by that? I don't consider growing up in the United States as a literal war refugee without any mental health care. I don't consider that a real good chance, if you know what I mean. A lot of these kids that were war refugees grew up in the grimiest neighborhoods here in the United States, where gang activity was already a problem. So essentially, they went from one war field to another. How do you think these types of kids are going to respond to violence? Leave the video a like if you enjoyed it. Leave something in the comment sections below if you guys want to talk about this situation. Let me know what you guys want me to cover next. But until next time, I'll be seeing you guys later. Peace.